blood dripped from Alice Walton's mouth onto the white hospital sheets. But 6 months earlier, Forbes magazine had crowned her husband the perfect man on their cover. Manhattan's elite gathered at the Plaza Hotel that March evening, crystal chandeliers casting shadows across champagne flutes worth more than most Americans' monthly salary. Josh Kushner commanded the podium, his $10,000 Armani tuxedo tailored to perfection, his smile practiced in mirrors for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to seem genuine, short enough to maintain mystery. Beside him, Alice Walton appeared ethereal in her midnight blue Valentino gown, one hand resting protectively over the subtle swell where their unborn child grew, a gesture the photographers loved, unaware she did it not from maternal pride, but from an instinct to shield her baby from its father. "Ladies and gentlemen," Josh began, his voice carrying that particular blend of false humility that billionaires perfect after years of practice. "When I first encountered Alice at that gallery, I was merely a man with ambition. She transformed me into something complete." The audience erupted in calculated applause. Victoria Ashford, wife of a senator, dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief worth more than a teacher's weekly salary. The photographer from Vanity Fair captured the moment, Josh pressing his lips to Alice's hand, creating an image of devotion that would garnish 40 million views online. The photographer missed Josh's other hand beneath the table, typing on his phone, "Performance concludes at 10. Your bed at 10:30. Wear the red lingerie." Alice felt his phone vibrate against her thigh. She recognized the pattern. 3 short bursts, Melissa's reply. She'd memorized it, catalogued it, added it to her growing collection of evidence. The proposal had become legend among New York's elite. A helicopter ride above Manhattan at sunset, 12 million viewers watching live on Instagram as Josh descended to one knee at 3,000 feet, the city glittering below like scattered diamonds. "Alice Walton," he'd declared, his voice cracking with practiced emotion, "transform me into the luckiest man breathing." The ring, a 15-carat pink diamond surrounded by black pearls, chosen specifically because it would photograph well in any lighting, caught the dying sun perfectly. The pilot later testified he'd practiced that exact angle 17 times. Alice had whispered yes through genuine tears, not from joy but from recognizing the calculation in his movements, how he'd checked the camera angle before kneeling, the slight smirk when she agreed, invisible to the cameras but burned into her memory. 24 months had passed since. 730 days of meticulously orchestrated displays, each more elaborate, more public, more false than the last. The Children's Hospital donation remained his masterpiece of deception. $2 million, presented with manufactured tears. "My wife taught me that wealth means nothing if it doesn't heal the innocent," he'd proclaimed to assembled press, his voice breaking at precisely the right moment. The oversized check went viral. 30 million shares in 6 hours. Celebrities commented with heart emojis. The president's wife called it American greatness personified. Alice had discovered the truth through a forensic accountant she'd hired secretly, paying cash, meeting in parking garages like a spy. The money had traveled through 6 shell companies in the Cayman Islands, 3 in Switzerland, 2 in Cyprus. The hospital received exactly $50,000, just enough for the naming ceremony and a small plaque. The remaining $1,950,000 had purchased a yacht registered in Malta under the name Melissa's Dream 2. The first had been bought with funds from a previous charity scam. Then came the rainstorm performance. Paparazzi had accidentally discovered them in a sudden Manhattan downpour. Without hesitation, Josh had swept Alice into his arms, carrying her through flooding streets to their waiting Bentley, destroying his $5,000 Berluti Oxfords in the process. The images dominated every tabloid. "Chivalry breathes," screamed the New York Post. "The last romantic," declared Vanity Fair. The photos sold for $200,000, which Josh had secretly split with the photographers. Alice remembered the truth with crystalline clarity. Josh's assistant had tracked the storm system for 72 hours using military-grade weather software. The photographers had been positioned with GPS precision. Josh had practiced the carry with his personal trainer, ensuring he could maintain the pose for exactly 45 seconds, tested with a stopwatch. "Did we capture it?" he'd demanded the moment they entered the car, not even glancing at Alice as she shivered in her drenched designer dress. "Every angle," his publicist had confirmed. "This will trend for months." The house represented his cruelest manipulation. A YouTube special with 43 million views, surprising my wife with her dream home. Josh blindfolding Alice with a Hermes scarf, leading her through the doors of a $15 million Hampton estate. Her gasp of joy, genuine surprise at the property's beauty, his proud smile, practiced for hours, the tears, real, but not for reasons viewers imagined. 3 months later, Alice had attempted to visit while Josh traveled to Tokyo. The security guard, a former Mossad agent, had blocked her entrance. "I apologize, Mrs. Kushner, but Ms. Chen's instructions are explicit. No visitors without her personal approval." Ms. Chen? That moment of revelation, standing in the rain outside a house supposedly hers, learning it belonged to Melissa Chen, Josh's mistress since Harvard, had finally shattered Alice's last illusion. The property records, which Warren's investigators would later uncover, revealed the full scope. Purchased with embezzled funds from 3 pension funds Josh managed, decorated by Melissa's personal designer, containing a bedroom where Josh spent 4 nights a week. The Tech Innovator Awards had been Josh's greatest performance. His acceptance speech garnered more views than the Super Bowl halftime show. "This recognition belongs to my wife," he'd proclaimed, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. "Alice, you're not simply my partner. You're my heartbeat, my conscience, my purpose for existing." The kiss that followed, deep, passionate, possessive, generated a standing ovation lasting 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Backstage, hidden cameras Warren had placed captured Josh, wiping his mouth with antibacterial wipes, muttering to his assistant, "God, kissing her is like kissing a corpse, cold, lifeless, boring." Alice had endured it all. Every humiliation catalogued, every deception documented, every cruelty recorded, not from weakness, but from purpose. A purpose Josh couldn't fathom, because Alice Walton harbored a secret so explosive that had Josh discovered it, he would have fled to the furthest corner of the earth. Her true surname wasn't Walton, it was Blackstone. Her father was Warren Blackstone, the shadow emperor of American business, a man whose name made Fortune 500 CEOs wake in cold sweats. Warren didn't merely own companies, he owned the people who owned countries. His wealth wasn't measured in mere billions, but in the power to crash entire economies with a phone call, to destroy political dynasties with a whisper, to erase entire bloodlines from existence. Alice had concealed this truth for one reason. She'd yearned to discover love untainted by her father's overwhelming power, to be chosen for herself rather than her inheritance. She'd believed she'd found it with Josh during those early months, flowers delivered without photographers present, conversations that seemed unscripted, moments that felt spontaneous. By the time she recognized every second had been choreographed with surgical precision, she was already trapped in his performance. She remained first from hope he might change, then from stubborn pride. Finally, when she discovered her pregnancy, from desperate belief that fatherhood might awaken his dormant humanity. Now, standing at another charity gala, observing Josh charm a senator while simultaneously texting his third mistress, Alice had identified 5 total. She felt the baby kick, strong, fierce, already fighting. Josh materialized at her elbow, his public smile painted on like makeup. "Dance with me," he commanded, not requested. "The photographers from Vogue are watching." As they glided across the floor, Josh's breath hot with whiskey and cocaine, he whispered, "You're getting fat. It's revolting. After you deliver my heir, you're getting surgery, or I'm taking everything in the divorce." Alice remained silent, counting down the days like a prisoner marking time. 3 more months, 92 days, 2,200 hours until her daughter would be born. Then she could escape. Then she could... "Pay attention," Josh hissed, his fingers digging into her waist hard enough to leave bruises that would purple by morning. "You're making me look incompetent." Alice smiled for the cameras and made her decision. She pulled out her phone between songs and typed a message she'd composed 1,000 times but never sent. "Dad, I know I asked for distance, but you should know. Josh isn't who I thought. I'm not in immediate danger, but prepare yourself." She stared at the message for 17 seconds, then deleted it. Number, she'd handle this herself. She was a Blackstone, even if the world didn't know it. 3 miles away, in a penthouse office overlooking the entire city like a modern Olympus, Warren Blackstone sat before a wall of monitors. Each screen displayed different angles of the charity gala, his security team having infiltrated every camera system. He'd witnessed every slap, documented every cruelty, built a file that now occupied 3 servers. "Sir?" His head of security, Marcus Chen, no relation to Melissa, said quietly, "Should we intervene?" Warren watched Josh's fingers leave new bruises on his daughter's arm, his jaw clenching with the effort of restraint. "Not yet," Warren said, his voice containing the controlled fury of an avalanche waiting to fall. "But very soon." He opened a file on his desk labeled Operation Total Annihilation and added another photograph. Josh's hand creating another bruise on his daughter's flesh. Timestamp visible, admissible in court. "Keep recording everything," Warren ordered. "When the moment arrives, I want enough evidence to bury him so deep that archaeologists in the year 3000 won't find his remains." The security chief nodded. "And if he escalates? If he truly hurts her?" Warren's eyes turned cold as absolute zero. "Then we stop pretending law and order matter." Back at the gala, Alice excused herself to the bathroom. In the mirror, she saw the fresh bruise forming on her arm, the 37th she'd documented. She covered it with concealer, having become expert at hiding evidence of Josh's escalating violence, and placed both hands on her stomach. "I promise you," she whispered to her unborn daughter, "you will never know love that comes with pain. You will never think bruises mean affection. I promise you that, even if it kills me." She didn't know that in 3 months that promise would nearly cost her life. She didn't know that the perfect husband's mask was about to shatter completely, revealing something so monstrous that even Warren, who'd seen humanity's worst, would be shocked. She didn't know that Josh had already paid someone called the Cleaner $3 million to make her death look accidental. But Warren knew. Warren saw everything, and Warren was ready. The war between the Shadow Emperor and the perfect husband was about to begin, and only one would survive. Chapter 2. The Shadow King. Warren Blackstone hadn't become the most feared man in America by accident. He'd earned it through 30 years of patience, calculation, and the complete annihilation of anyone who threatened what was his. The office occupied the entire top floor of Blackstone Tower, a black glass spear that pierced the Manhattan skyline at 1,271 feet. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view that stretched from the Atlantic to New Jersey, but Warren wasn't admiring the view. He was studying his daughter on 12 different screens, each showing different angles from hidden cameras at the charity gala, cameras in the chandeliers, the corsages, even the ice sculptures. "She's limping," he observed, his voice carrying the quiet menace of a gathering storm. Marcus Chen, former Delta Force commander who'd personally executed 3 heads of state for the CIA, leaned closer to the screens. "Left ankle. She's compensating well, but the weight distribution is off by 12%. Warren's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Another injury for the archive. Another crime Josh Kushner believed he'd concealed. Few knew the true story of Warren Blackstone's rise. Business schools taught a sanitized version. Poor boy from Brooklyn makes good through hard work and smart investments. The reality was far darker, far bloodier, and far more impressive. His father had died when a construction crane collapsed. Not an accident, as Warren discovered years later, but murder ordered by the construction company owner to avoid paying safety violation fines. His mother cleaned offices for 16 hours a day, her hands cracked and bleeding to keep them fed. Warren had sworn on his father's grave that he'd never be powerless again. His first million came from shorting the construction company whose owner had killed his father. Warren had spent 3 years gathering evidence of their safety violations, then released it all the day before their IPO. The company collapsed. The owner jumped from his penthouse. Warren attended the funeral and smiled. His first billion came from hostile takeovers of every company that had rejected his job applications. 23 companies in total. He'd kept their rejection letters framed in his private study, each one annotated with the date he'd destroyed them. By 40, Warren Blackstone owned pieces of everything that mattered: 6 major banks, 4 media conglomerates, 3 defense contractors, 2 pharmaceutical giants, and 1 social media platform that shaped global discourse. But his true power came from information. Warren collected secrets like others collected art. He knew which senator had murdered a prostitute in 1987. He knew which Supreme Court justice had taken bribes for 15 years. He knew which Fortune 500 CEOs were foreign intelligence assets. He never used this information for crude blackmail. Instead, he simply let them know he knew, and they fell in line like dominoes. "Tell me about Richard Kushner's death," Warren commanded, though he already knew every detail. Marcus pulled up a holographic display. Warren had invested $50 million in the technology just for his office. Richard Kushner died in a boating accident when Josh was 25, left him approximately $300 million. Show me the insurance investigation. Documents materialized in the air. Hartford Insurance fought the payout for 2 years. Their investigator found bruising on Richard's shoulders consistent with being held underwater. Josh was the only other person on the boat. The investigator died in a car accident before he could testify. The accident. Professional hit. Brake lines cut with precision. Josh paid for it through the same intermediary he uses now, the cleaner. Warren nodded slowly. And Patricia Kushner? Institutionalized 3 months after Richard's death. Diagnosed with sudden onset dementia at 58. Statistically impossible without severe head trauma or poisoning. Poisoning. Mercury. Trace amounts in her hair samples. Josh had been putting it in her tea for 6 months. She's actually recovered now, living under an assumed name in Vermont. We've been protecting her for 2 years. Warren stood and walked to the window. Below, 10 million people lived their lives, unaware that their fates were often decided in rooms like this by men like him. When did Josh start killing? Warren asked, though he knew this answer too. Marcus pulled up another file. First confirmed kill, Rebecca Martinez, college freshman year. His girlfriend jumped from her dorm window after allegedly leaving a suicide note. Allegedly? The note was typed on a computer she didn't own, using software she'd never installed, with vocabulary she never used. Her roommate said Rebecca was happy, planning to transfer away from Josh. She died 12 hours after telling him she was leaving. The police. Josh's father donated $10 million to the university the next day. The case was closed as suicide. Warren's reflection in the window showed no emotion, but his hands clenched behind his back. Total victims? Confirmed. 47. Suspected. 113. The pattern is consistent. Women who rejected him, business rivals who threatened him, anyone who could expose him. Show me. Marcus projected a map onto the window itself, red dots across America, each representing a death. They clustered around Josh's movements over 15 years. "They're all women," Warren observed. 90%. All similar appearance. Dark hair, delicate features, intelligent. Your daughter's type. Warren studied the photos of the victims. The resemblance to Alice was undeniable. Josh had been practicing for her, refining his techniques. He knew who she was, Warren stated. From the beginning, he paid $1 million to a private investigator named Harrison Wells to uncover her real identity. Wells died in a hiking accident 2 weeks after delivering his report. Of course he did. Marcus hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. We've discovered Josh has been in contact with someone called the Cleaner for the past month." Warren turned sharply. "Contract? Alice. Make it look like complications from childbirth. $3 million already paid." Warren was moving before Marcus finished speaking. He pressed a button on his desk. Within seconds, 20 screens lit up showing various members of his network. "Code Black," Warren announced. "Full activation. Target Josh Kushner." The head of his legal team, Sarah Williams, secretly Warren's daughter from his first marriage, appeared on screen. "Father, your sister is in danger. Prepare everything. Criminal charges, civil suits, federal investigations. I want Josh Kushner legally dead within 72 hours of my signal." "Understood." His financial team leader appeared. "Mr. Blackstone, begin acquiring Kushner Industries shares through our shell companies. I want controlling interest within the month. Quietly." "Yes, sir." His media coordinator. "Sir, prepare to release everything, every crime, every victim, every piece of evidence. But not yet. We wait for him to make his move." "Standing by." Warren turned to Marcus. "Double the surveillance on Alice. I want someone within 10 feet of her at all times." "Already done. We have 17 assets in place." "Not enough. Make it 30. "Sir, if I may, why not just eliminate Josh? Make it look accidental." Warren considered this. He'd certainly killed before, 17 times to be exact. Men who'd hurt children. Men who'd threatened his family. Men who'd needed to disappear. "Because that's what Josh would do," Warren finally answered. "He kills because he can. I destroy because I must. There's a difference between justice and murder." "Is there?" Warren pulled up a photo of Elizabeth, his late wife. Her smile still made his chest tighten 5 years after her death. "Elizabeth made me promise to let Alice find her own way, to not let my power define her life. I've kept that promise, even as it led her to Josh. But she also made me promise something else." "What?" "That if anyone ever truly hurt our daughter, I would show them why I'm called the Shadow Emperor." Warren pressed another button. A hidden panel opened, revealing a room most people didn't know existed. Inside were screens showing real-time feeds from inside the White House, the Pentagon, the Federal Reserve. "Mr. President," Warren said to one screen. President Morrison looked up from his desk. "Warren, how are you?" "Never mind. What do you need?" "Josh Kushner. He's about to hurt my daughter. When I move against him, I need you to stay out of my way." "Warren, we can't have vigilante. This will all be legal. Every charge legitimate. Every piece of evidence obtained through proper channels. But it will be thorough, and it will be complete." The president sighed. "How bad is he?" "Serial killer. 47 confirmed victims. Maybe more. Jesus Christ, why hasn't he been caught?" "Money, connections, bodies that disappear, but mostly because no one's ever had the resources to fight him properly." "And you do?" Warren smiled coldly. "Mr. President, I own the banks that hold his loans. I own the judges who will try him. I own the media that will destroy him. I own the prisons where he'll rot. Josh Kushner thinks he's a predator. He's about to learn what it means to be prey." "Warren, that sounds like justice. Delayed, but not denied." The president nodded slowly. You have 72 hours before I have to officially respond. Make them count. Warren ended the call and turned to Marcus. Activate the extraction team. The moment Josh makes his move, I want Alice out and safe. And Josh? Josh gets to live, in a cage, for the rest of his miserable life, watching everything he built turn to ash. Marcus smiled, a rare occurrence. You've been planning this for 3 years. I've been planning this since the moment he touched my daughter. Every slap, every bruise, every cruel word. I've been building his coffin nail by nail. Why wait? Warren looked at the screens showing Alice at the gala, still smiling despite the pain Josh caused. Because she needed to see him for what he is, because she needed to choose to leave, because when this ends, she needs to know she survived him, not that I saved her. And if he kills her? Warren's eyes went dark. Then Code Black becomes Code Red, and Code Red means no survivors. Not Josh, not his accomplices, not his bloodline. Everyone connected to him disappears. That's over 300 people. Then 300 people better pray Josh doesn't kill my daughter. On the screens, the gala was ending. Josh was dragging Alice toward their limousine, his grip tight enough to leave marks. Sir, Marcus said urgently, Josh just texted the cleaner. He's moving up the timeline. Warren stood. How long? Tonight. He's going to make it look like she fell down the stairs. Warren was already moving. Get the extraction team there now. And Marcus, sir, release the first wave of information. Let's see how Josh handles his world beginning to crumble. As Warren's motorcade raced through Manhattan, phones across the city began buzzing. The first leak, Josh Kushner under federal investigation for fraud. By the time Josh got home, his perfect world had already started to crack. He just didn't know it yet. Chapter 3. The Performance of Love. Josh Kushner stood before his bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., practicing his grief-stricken expression for the 43rd time, while his mistress slept in the bedroom and his wife bled slowly in secret. My beloved wife tragically fell, he rehearsed, adding a strategic voice crack. If only I'd been home. If only... He let a single tear fall. He'd learned to cry on command at 17, right after his first murder. The planning for Alice's death had begun 3 years ago, the day he'd discovered her true identity. Warren Blackstone's daughter, the ultimate prize. Marry her, impregnate her, eliminate her, inherit everything through the child. It was elegant in its simplicity, beautiful in its cruelty. But first, he had to make the world believe in their love story. The helicopter proposal had cost him $300,000 in bribes and preparation. The pilot, James Morrison, had initially refused to participate in the spontaneous moment. This is insane, Morrison had said. You want me to fly at exactly this angle, at exactly this time, while you propose? Josh had smiled and shown Morrison photos of his daughter entering a motel with her dealer. It would be terrible if these ended up with child services. Morrison had flown the route 17 times until it was perfect. But what the world never saw was the rehearsal video. Josh practicing with a mannequin, checking angles, testing how the ring would catch the light. His assistant had accidentally left it on his computer, and Alice had found it 6 months later. She'd copied it, added it to her growing archive of evidence. The Children's Hospital donation had been more complex. $2 million, routed through 17 shell companies, each one taking a cut, cleaning the money, transforming charity into personal wealth. Dr. Patricia Williams, the hospital's director, had been suspicious. Mr. Kushner, we've only received $50,000, and you'll receive $50,000 more if you stop asking questions, Josh had replied, sliding photos across her desk, images of her husband with another man. Amazing what private investigators find these days. The doctor had gone silent. The donation was celebrated. Josh bought his third yacht with the stolen funds. But there were other performances the public never saw. The hidden trophy room. Behind a false wall in Josh's office lay his real masterpiece, a room Alice had discovered 3 months ago while Josh was traveling. She'd been looking for financial documents when she'd noticed the wall dimensions didn't match. A hidden switch revealed the truth. 47 photographs, each labeled with names, dates, and methods. Rebecca M., strangulation, made me work for it. Jennifer Wu, gravity, screamed beautifully. Sarah Johnson, poison, watched her realize she was dying. But worse than the photos were the videos. Josh had recorded 17 of his murders, storing them on encrypted drives. Alice had copied everything onto a hidden drive, her hands shaking as she watched 3 minutes of one video, enough to confirm they were real, too much to ever forget. Below the photos was another collection, items taken from each victim. Driver's licenses arranged like playing cards, jewelry in display cases, locks of hair in labeled bags, and at the center, in a place of honor, a photo Alice recognized with sickening clarity. Her mother, Elizabeth, at a restaurant 5 years ago. The label read, "The mother-in-law problem, solved with patience." Alice had stood in that room for an hour, memorizing everything, photographing it all, then carefully replacing everything exactly as she'd found it. That night, she'd created her 5th backup of the evidence, hiding copies in safety deposit boxes Josh didn't know existed. The other women. Melissa Chen was just the most public mistress. Alice had identified 7 others, each serving a different purpose in Josh's twisted ecosystem. Victoria Lang, 23, a Columbia student Josh had groomed since she was 19. He paid her tuition and rent in exchange for absolute obedience. Alice had recordings of Josh instructing Victoria on how to drug other girls at parties for him. Rachel Moore, 31, a prosecutor Josh was blackmailing with deepfake pornography. She threw cases for him, made evidence disappear, and lived in constant terror. Alice had found their text exchanges, Josh's casual cruelty, Rachel's desperate pleading. Isabella Cruz, 27, an FBI analyst who fed Josh information about investigations. She'd tried to leave once. Josh had broken her arm in 3 places, then paid for the best surgeon to fix it. "So you remember," he'd told her, "that I can break you and remake you whenever I want." But the most disturbing discovery had been Catherine Wells, 19, who looked exactly like Alice had in college. Josh dressed her in Alice's clothes, had her wear Alice's perfume, called her by Alice's name during sex. He was practicing for the replacement he'd already selected for after Alice's death. The secret recordings. What Josh didn't know was that Alice had been recording everything for 3 years. Hidden cameras in every room, purchased with cash from different stores across 3 states. Voice recorders in her jewelry, her purses, even sewn into her clothes. She had thousands of hours of evidence. Josh on the phone with the cleaner. "Make it look like postpartum depression. Women kill themselves and their babies all the time. No one will question it." Josh with his lawyer. "Once Alice is gone, Warren will be destroyed by grief. I'll comfort him, let him bond with his granddaughter. Within a year, I'll control the entire Blackstone empire." Josh with his mother, before he'd poisoned her. "You're going to have an accident soon, Mother. Dementia is so tragic. Don't worry, I'll take good care of your money." Josh with Melissa, laughing about Alice. "She actually thinks I might love her. It's pathetic, like a cow believing the farmer is its friend." The practice runs. 3 women before Alice had been test runs, each one teaching Josh something new. Margaret Thompson, his college girlfriend after Rebecca. She'd survived because her father was a federal judge, but Josh had learned how much poison was too little to kill, just enough to cause miscarriage. Margaret lost her baby and never knew why. Diana Chen, no relation to Melissa, a banking heiress he'd dated for 6 months. He'd practiced his psychological torture on her, gaslighting, isolation, calculated cruelty. She'd attempted suicide twice. Josh had filmed both attempts, studying them to perfect his technique. Nina Rodriguez, a doctor who'd almost exposed him. He'd courted her for 3 months, making her fall in love, then destroyed her systematically. Lost her medical license after drugs he'd planted were found. Lost her home after he'd destroyed her credit. Lost her sanity after he'd convinced everyone she was paranoid. She now lived in a psychiatric facility, insisting her ex-boyfriend was a serial killer while everyone dismissed her as delusional. The award night's hidden scene. The Tech Innovator Awards speech had a darker prelude no one saw. In the bathroom before his speech, Josh had snorted cocaine off a photo of Alice's mother. "Thanks for dying, Elizabeth," he'd said to the photo. "Your death made Alice vulnerable. Grief is such a useful tool." His phone had recorded it all, a video he'd sent to a friend with the caption, "About to win an Oscar for playing loving husband." That friend, Michael Thornton, was now CEO of a major tech company. He'd responded, "Save some of that grief pussy for me after you offer." Alice had hacked Josh's phone that night, copying everything. The exchange about her mother, the casual discussion of her murder, the way they talked about women like objects to be used and discarded. The final recording. The night before Alice would be rushed to the hospital, Josh made his most damning recording yet. He didn't know Alice had placed a camera in his home office, disguised as a pen. Josh sat with 5 other men, all wealthy, all powerful, all killers. "Gentlemen," Josh said, "the Alice situation will be resolved soon. Once she's gone and I control the Blackstone fortune, we expand operations." "How many cities?" one asked. "All of them. We've proven the model works. Rich men can kill anyone if we're smart about it. The network has 43 members now. By next year, 100. And if someone talks?" Josh pulled out a knife and stabbed it into a photo of Alice on his desk. "Then they end up like her, dead, but looking like suicide." The men laughed. They toasted with champagne. They discussed their victims like baseball statistics. "My count is at 15, one bragged. 23, another counted. 47, Josh said quietly, soon to be 48. "What about the baby?" Josh shrugged. "Collateral damage, or maybe I keep it. Raise it to be like us. Imagine, a second generation, trained from birth." Alice had watched this recording from her hospital bed after the birth, her hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. She'd sent it to her father with 2 words: "End them." The night before the hospital. Josh came home at 2 a.m. to find Alice awake, sitting in the dark living room. "Can't sleep?" he asked, not caring about the answer. "The baby's been moving a lot." "Well, enjoy it while it lasts," he said, not realizing how his words sounded like a threat because they were. He went to shower, and Alice quickly checked his phone. A new message from the cleaner. "Tomorrow night, during the charity gala. Make sure she drinks the champagne." Alice's blood went cold. The champagne would induce labor. The complications would kill her. Josh would play the grieving widower. She made a decision. She poured the champagne down the sink and replaced it with regular champagne she'd bought weeks ago, suspecting something. If Josh wanted her to drink it, she wouldn't, but her body had other plans. The stress, the fear, the constant vigilance, it all took its toll. At 2:47 a.m., she woke to real labor pains, real bleeding, real danger, and Josh's plan, meant for tomorrow, accidentally began tonight. As she reached for her phone to call for help, she thought she heard Josh on his phone in the bathroom. "Yes, it's happening. No, I didn't give her anything. Sometimes fate helps us out." Later, she'd wonder if she'd really heard it, or if her pain had created phantoms. But the security footage from their building would later show Josh on his phone at 2:48 a.m., smiling as his wife bled in the next room, already calling his publicist to prepare his grieving husband's statement. The performance was about to become real, and Alice was about to discover just how far her father would go to protect her. Chapter 4. The Hospital Horror. The pain that ripped through Alice at 2:47 a.m. wasn't the controlled agony Josh had planned. It was nature itself rebelling, her body finally breaking under 3 years of hidden bruises and swallowed fear. Blood pooled beneath her, more than there should be, painting their Egyptian cotton sheets a crimson that would never wash clean. She reached for Josh's side of the bed, finding only the cold emptiness that had defined their marriage, his absence as carefully calculated as his presence. Her phone showed his location, Melissa's apartment, the 4th consecutive night. But the tracker also showed something else. He'd stopped at a pharmacy at 2:15 a.m., purchasing items that made no sense unless you knew he was preparing an alibi. Bandages, antiseptic, items that would suggest he'd been home caring for his injured wife. She called him once, no answer. Twice, straight to voicemail. 3 times, his custom ringtone for her, Gold Digger by Kanye West, playing mockingly before cutting off. On the 4th attempt, he answered, and she could hear everything. Melissa's laughter, music, the clink of champagne glasses, and something else. Other voices. Multiple women. What? His voice carried the particular irritation reserved for interruptions to his pleasure. Josh, please, something's wrong with the baby. Jesus Christ, Alice, I'm at an important business dinner. Behind him, someone giggled. Business? Is that what we're calling it now? I'm bleeding. Too much blood, I need... Call an Uber, I'm not your chauffeur. Josh, I might be dying. Promise? He laughed, actually laughed. Look, handle it yourself. I'm busy. The line went dead. Alice tried to stand, and the room tilted violently. Her legs were soaked in blood, leaving red footprints on their white marble floor, evidence that would later be photographed, analyzed, and presented in court. She managed to stumble to the elevator, her vision tunneling, darkness creeping in from the edges. The security camera footage would later show her collapse against the elevator wall, her hand pressed desperately against her stomach, lips moving in prayer or promise. The doorman, Anthony Martinez, secretly one of Warren's men, a former Navy SEAL with 18 confirmed kills in Afghanistan, saw her and immediately abandoned all pretense of cover. Mrs. Kushner, he was running, catching her as her legs gave out completely. Hospital, she gasped, blood bubbling from her lips. Save her. Anthony didn't call an Uber. He lifted her into his arms, her blood soaking his uniform, and ran to his car, a modified vehicle with hidden armor plating and a medical kit Warren had insisted on. Stay with me, ma'am, he said, driving with one hand while calling Warren's emergency line with the other. Phoenix is down. Repeat. Phoenix is down, en route to Mount Sinai. He broke every traffic law in Manhattan. Red lights didn't exist. Stop signs were suggestions. Other cars were obstacles to navigate around. The dashcam footage, later subpoenaed, showed him driving on sidewalks, through parks, wrong way down one-way streets. Please, Alice whispered, her voice growing fainter, don't let my baby die. Nobody's dying tonight, Anthony promised, though privately he wasn't sure either would survive. The emergency room erupted when they arrived. Dr. Sarah Martinez, head of obstetrics, and coincidentally another of Warren's carefully placed assets, took one look at Alice and started shouting orders. Placental abruption, get her to OR3 now. Call the blood bank, we need 8 units standing by. Where's the NICU team? Get them here now. Alice grabbed Dr. Martinez's coat with bloody fingers. Save her first. If you have to choose, we're saving both of you, Dr. Martinez said firmly, though she was already calculating the odds. 20% for both to survive, 40% for the baby alone, 40% for neither. In the OR, Alice flatlined twice. The first time for 43 seconds, her heart simply stopped. exhausted from blood loss. They brought her back with electricity and adrenaline, her body convulsing on the table. The second time for 67 seconds, longer, scarier, with the baby's heart rate dropping toward nothing. Dr. Martinez had to make a choice: emergency C-section while Alice was technically dead, hoping to save the baby before brain damage set in. "Cut now," she ordered. The scalpel moved with desperate precision. The baby emerged, tiny, blue, silent. "Come on, little one," the NICU specialist whispered, working frantically. "Come on!" A cry, weak but real. The baby was alive. And then, miraculously, impossibly, Alice's heart resumed beating on its own. "We've got rhythm!" someone shouted. 2 lives saved by seconds and skill. It was 4:10 a.m. when Josh finally arrived. He burst through the hospital doors like he'd been running, his hair artfully mussed, his designer shirt strategically untucked. But the security cameras caught what human eyes missed. Him checking his appearance in the glass doors first, adjusting his expression from annoyance to concern. And he wasn't alone in spirit. His phone was recording everything, held at an angle that would capture his devoted husband rushing to his wife's side performance. "Where is she? Where's my wife?" he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear, his voice carrying that practiced edge of panic he'd rehearsed in the car. But when he entered Alice's room and saw no media, no witnesses except medical staff, his mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. Alice lay unconscious, her skin grey from blood loss, machines keeping her alive. Their daughter was somewhere in the NICU, fighting for each breath. Any human would have felt something: fear, relief, guilt, anything. Josh felt only rage at the inconvenience. "This is fucking unbelievable," he snarled at the unconscious form of his wife. Tomorrow was supposed to be perfect. The charity gala, the poisoned champagne, the tragic loss. You couldn't even die on schedule. Dr. Martinez entered at that moment, having heard everything through the door. "Mr. Kushner, your wife almost died. Your daughter is critical." "Shut up!" Josh's face went purple, veins bulging in his neck. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what this looks like?" Josh Kushner's wife rushed to hospital alone. "The merger announcement is tomorrow. My stock will tank. This stupid bitch." He raised his hand. The slap connected with devastating force. Alice's head snapped back, hitting the wall behind her bed with a crack that echoed through the room. The monitors she was connected to went insane, heart rate spiking to dangerous levels, blood pressure dropping, oxygen saturation plummeting. Blood appeared at the corner of her mouth, fresh blood, mixing with what remained from her earlier hemorrhaging. For 3 seconds, the entire floor stood frozen in shock. 7 cameras captured it from different angles. 3 cell phones recorded it. 18 witnesses saw it clearly. Dr. Martinez moved first. "Security, now!" 2 male nurses, both former military, tackled Josh to the ground. He fought them, screaming obscenities, his carefully styled appearance disintegrating into something feral. "Get off me! I'm Josh Kushner. I own this hospital. I'll have you all killed." Security arrived, real security, and 3 of Warren's undercover assets. They pinned Josh down, cuffing him as he continued to rage. Dr. Martinez was checking Alice's pupils, terrified Josh had caused a traumatic brain injury on top of everything else. "Get neurology here now. Possible TBI. And someone call the police. This is assault." Alice's eyes fluttered open, unfocused but aware. "My baby? She's alive. She's fighting, just like her mother." Alice's hand moved, slowly, painfully, to her phone. With trembling fingers, she typed 2 words to the contact labeled "Dad, Daddy, now." 14,000 miles away in Tokyo, Warren Blackstone was signing a $1 trillion infrastructure deal when his phone, set to silent for everyone except Alice, vibrated. He read the message. Without a word, without explanation, without apology, he stood up and walked out. The Japanese Prime Minister, shocked by the breach of protocol, called after him, "Blackstone-san, the agreement is cancelled. Warren was already in the elevator, his phone becoming a weapon. Marcus, code black, full activation, now. Sir, Josh hit her, in the hospital, while she was dying. He's dead. Number death is too easy. I want him to suffer for decades. Activate everyone, release everything, destroy everything he's ever touched. Within 15 minutes, the machinery of Warren's revenge roared to life. 20 lawyers were pulled from their beds. The FBI received packages of evidence. Every major news outlet got the hospital footage. Josh's accounts were frozen. His investors were notified of fraud. His board called an emergency meeting. His mother received proof of her husband's murder. His mistresses were arrested. His entire life began collapsing at the speed of light. Back at the hospital, Josh was in handcuffs, still screaming, when Detective Morrison arrived. Josh Kushner, you're under arrest for assault, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. You can't arrest me. I'm Josh Kushner. Yeah, Morrison said, looking at the blood on the wall where Alice's head had hit. That's the problem. As they dragged Josh out, he saw something that finally made him understand the magnitude of his mistake. A news report on the waiting room TV. Breaking: Josh Kushner attacks pregnant wife. Shocking hospital video goes viral. The footage was everywhere, every channel, every website, every phone. 2 billion people watching Josh Kushner reveal his true face. His phone, confiscated as evidence, buzzed with messages. The board has voted. You're out. We're pulling all funding. You're finished. Check the news about your real father. That last one made Josh's blood run cold, because on the screen a banner scrolled, "Breaking, Josh Kushner's wife revealed as Warren Blackstone's daughter, the billionaire shadow emperor declares war." Josh's legs gave out. He had to be carried to the police car. In her hospital bed, Alice held her tiny daughter for the first time. The baby was small but perfect, with Alice's dark hair and Warren's fierce eyes. "Hello, my love," Alice whispered. "You're safe now. Grandpa's here." And indeed, Warren's jet was already descending toward New York, carrying not just him, but an army of lawyers, doctors, and investigators. The war was no longer coming. It had arrived. And Josh Kushner was about to learn what happened when you touched a Blackstone. Chapter 5. The Father's Revenge. Warren. Blackstone's Gulfstream G650 touched down at Teterboro Airport at 11:47 p.m., but he'd been systematically destroying Josh Kushner's life for the past 18 hours from 40,000 feet above the Pacific. The plane's interior had been transformed into a war room that would make the Pentagon envious. 30 screens showed different aspects of Josh's collapsing empire in real time. 50 of the world's most ruthless lawyers, investigators, and financial assassins worked in coordinated precision, each one executing a specific component of Warren's meticulously crafted vengeance. "Status report," Warren commanded, his voice carrying the calm that preceded Category 5 hurricanes. James Morrison, his chief strategist, unrelated to the detective but equally lethal, pulled up a holographic display that cost more than most people's homes. Kushner Industries stock has lost 93% of its value, trading suspended indefinitely. Board voted him out unanimously. His personal accounts containing $430 million have been frozen pending federal investigation. Media saturation? The hospital video has 3 billion views globally. As Justice for Alice, trending in 47 countries. Josh Kushner is currently the most hated man on earth. Legal status. 23 charges filed so far. Assault, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud exceeding $1 billion, tax evasion, money laundering, bail denied. He's being held in general population at Rikers because the judge forgot to order protective custody. Warren's expression remained unchanged, but satisfaction flickered in his eyes. Patricia Kushner? She's agreed to testify, full cooperation. She has evidence about Richard's murder and video recordings of Josh confessing to multiple killings. Good, double her protection. Josh has resources we haven't found yet. The motorcade waiting at Teterboro consisted of 15 vehicles, bulletproof, bomb-proof, and filled with former Special Forces operators who'd done things in places that didn't officially exist. When Warren Blackstone moved through New York, he moved like a sovereign nation. But his first stop wasn't the hospital. It was Josh's corporate headquarters. At midnight, Warren walked into Kushner Industries with 60 people behind him. Security didn't even attempt resistance. Half had already been bought. The other half recognized the futility. Warren took the executive elevator to Josh's office, 10,000 square feet of obscene luxury overlooking Central Park. The walls displayed photos of Josh with celebrities, politicians, world leaders, all purchased relationships, all fake smiles. "Pack everything," Warren ordered. "Every document, every hard drive, every piece of paper. I want forensic accountants going through 20 years of records." He walked to Josh's desk, a monstrosity of Italian marble that cost more than a teacher's annual salary. In the top drawer, exactly where his intelligence suggested, were Josh's real books, the ones showing where the bodies were buried, literally and financially. "Sir," an investigator called out, voice tight with discovery, "you need to see this." Behind a hidden panel, they'd found Josh's real trophy room, not the one Alice had discovered, but another, worse one. Hundreds of photos, videos dating back 15 years, detailed journals describing each murder with the prose of someone who considered killing an art form. Warren felt bile rise, but swallowed it. Among the photos was one that stopped his heart. Elizabeth at dinner 5 years ago, labeled "Test Run Successful Compound X47 14-month deterioration." "He documented poisoning my wife," Warren said quietly, his voice containing enough controlled rage to level cities. "There's more, sir. Financial records showing he hired 17 different assassins over the years, a network of corrupt cops, judges and prosecutors he's been paying, and," the investigator paused, "plans to kill you after Alice's death." Warren studied the plans. They were detailed, professional, and would have worked if Josh had lived long enough to implement them. "Copy everything. Original drives to the FBI, backups to our lawyers, third copies to every major news outlet at dawn." His phone rang. "Dr. Martinez from the hospital." "Mr. Blackstone, Alice is asking for you." "On my way." At Mount Sinai Hospital, Warren entered through a private entrance, the corridor to Alice's room lined with his security. No one was getting near his daughter again. When he entered her room, his composure finally cracked. Alice's face was swollen purple and yellow where Josh had struck her. She looked so fragile in the hospital bed, so unlike the warrior she'd proven herself to be. But her eyes blazed with Blackstone determination. "Dad!" He crossed to her in 3 strides, taking her hand with infinite gentleness. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have acted sooner. You were watching the whole time, weren't you? Every moment. Documenting everything, building a case that would destroy him permanently. Mom knew what he was, didn't she? Before she died." Warren's jaw tightened. "She suspected. She tried to warn you at that last dinner. That's why he killed her." Alice's eyes filled with tears. "He killed Mom. Poisoned her. Slowly. Compound X47. It mimics aggressive cancer. I have his documentation. He wrote about watching her die like it was entertainment. My God. God has nothing to do with Josh Kushner. But justice will..." A nurse entered, wheeling in a NICU incubator. Inside, impossibly small but undeniably fierce, was Alice's daughter. "She's stable," the nurse explained. "Still critical, but fighting." Warren looked at his granddaughter, and for the first time in 5 years, felt something other than rage. This tiny warrior, born into violence but surrounded by love, represented everything Josh had tried to destroy and failed. What will you name her? Emma. Emma Elizabeth Blackstone. No Kushner. He doesn't exist to us anymore. Warren's phone buzzed. Marcus, his security chief. Sir, Patricia Kushner has arrived. She insists on speaking with you immediately. In a conference room 1 floor down, Josh's mother sat across from Warren. She'd aged 20 years in 20 hours, her designer facade replaced with raw truth. He killed Richard, she said without preamble. My husband. Josh held him underwater until he drowned. Tell me everything. The boat trip was Josh's idea. He insisted they go alone. Richard couldn't swim. He was terrified of water. Josh knew that. She pulled out a tablet. Richard was suspicious of Josh. He installed hidden cameras in Josh's apartment. This is what he found. She played a video. Josh, younger but recognizable, strangling a woman in his living room. The woman's face was clear, her terror real, her death recorded in high definition. There are dozens more. Richard was going to turn Josh in, so Josh killed him. Why didn't you come forward? Josh had me committed, paid doctors to diagnose me with dementia, kept me drugged for 2 years. When I finally got free, he controlled everything. He said if I ever spoke about it, he'd kill me like Richard. You're under my protection now. Mr. Blackstone, there's more. Josh has a son. Warren froze. What? From one of his early victims. She died in childbirth. Josh doesn't know the boy survived. I've been secretly supporting him and his adoptive family for 5 years. His name is Michael. He's 5 years old. Where? Boston. I can give you the address. We'll bring them here, under protection. Patricia pulled out a flash drive. This contains everything. Richard's investigation, my recordings of Josh over the years, financial documents, murder confessions, everything. Warren took the drive. Mrs. Kushner, would you testify? I'll do more than testify. I'll bury him. He's not my son. My son died the day he killed his first victim. Warren's phone rang again. The president. Warren, the FBI just called. They're saying Josh Kushner has killed over 100 people. At least. We're still finding bodies. Jesus Christ, how did this happen? Money, power, a system that protects wealthy predators, but mostly because no one ever stood up to him with equal resources. And now? Now he faces someone with more money, more power, and absolutely no mercy. Warren, we need to do this legally. Everything I'm doing is legal, Mr. President. Every document legitimately obtained. Every charge supported by evidence. Every action within the law. And if the law fails? Warren looked through the window at Alice holding baby Emma. Then I'll create new laws. The president sighed. You have my support. Quietly. That's all I need. By dawn, Warren had orchestrated the complete annihilation of Josh Kushner's world. Every property seized, every account frozen, every asset catalogued, every crime documented, every victim identified, every accomplice exposed. The media received everything simultaneously. The headlines were devastating. Serial killer CEO Josh Kushner linked to 100+ murders. Billionaire monster. How money hid a predator. The fall of Josh Kushner, from Forbes cover to death row. But Warren wasn't finished. He made one more call. Hello, Josh. It's your father-in-law. Josh, in his holding cell at Rikers, grabbed the phone desperately. Warren! This is all a misunderstanding. I'm coming to see you tomorrow, Josh. We're going to discuss your future, what little remains of it. You can't. I can. I have. And I will. Enjoy your last night of thinking you might escape this. Warren hung up and looked at his team. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. We're going to legally, systematically, and completely erase Josh Kushner from existence. Marcus smiled. And Phase 3? Warren's eyes were winter cold. Phase 3 is making sure everyone connected to him falls with him. The war had begun, and Warren Blackstone didn't lose wars. Chapter 6. The Trial of the Century. The New York County Courthouse had been transformed into a fortress. 3,000 protesters surrounded by 800 police officers, 500 journalists from every corner of the globe, and security measures typically reserved for terrorist trials. Josh Kushner entered through an underground tunnel, but the sound of his chains echoed through speakers someone had strategically placed, broadcasting his degradation to the masses who'd gathered to witness justice. Each metallic step reminded the world that the Golden Boy had become prisoner 78,432. Inside courtroom 318, 100 seats held America's elite, senators, CEOs, celebrities, all present to witness the public execution of one of their own. But the front row was reserved for the victims' families. 47 photographs sat on 47 empty chairs, each one a life Josh had stolen, each one watching with dead eyes as their killer faced judgment. Judge Martha Williams, 73 years old with a career spanning 4 decades, looked at the circus before her and brought down her gavel hard enough to crack the sound block. This court will maintain absolute order. Mr. Kushner, you stand accused of 113 counts of murder in the first degree, 47 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, 312 counts of fraud exceeding $1 billion, and 200 additional felonies. How do you plead? Thomas Brennan, the only attorney desperate enough for publicity to take Josh's case, stood with visible reluctance. Not guilty on all counts, Your Honor. The gallery erupted. Someone screamed, "Baby killer!" Another voice shouted, "Monster!" Security moved to remove the disruptors. "Silence!" Judge Williams commanded. "Another outburst and I'll clear this courtroom." Prosecutor Sarah Williams rose, Warren's secret weapon, his daughter from his first marriage, raised in shadow but trained at Harvard Law, forged in the Southern District of New York, with 37 consecutive murder convictions. "Your Honor," Sarah's voice cut through the room like a surgical blade, "the people request remand without bail. The defendant has hidden assets exceeding $2 billion, a documented history of witness elimination, and active contracts on 3 witnesses' lives." "Objection!" Brennan protested. "My client is a respected—" Sarah pressed play on a recording. Josh's voice filled the courtroom. "I'll kill that bitch judge if she doesn't rule my way. I've done it before. Judges are easier than you'd think. They're predictable, vulnerable, and nobody suspects natural causes." Judge Williams's face went pale, then red with rage. "Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody for the duration of these proceedings." Josh lunged forward, his careful composure shattering. "You can't do this. I'm Josh Kushner. I own this city. I own you." "Mr. Kushner," the judge's voice was arctic, "one more outburst and you'll be gagged and shackled. You own nothing anymore. Sit down." Sarah began her opening statement, and it was a masterpiece of controlled devastation. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're about to witness evil in its purest form. Josh Kushner didn't just kill, he collected his victims like trophies. He didn't just steal, he destroyed entire families for sport. He didn't just assault his pregnant wife, he did it while she was dying, while their baby fought for life, because he was annoyed at the inconvenience." She clicked a remote. The hospital video played on a massive screen, the slap in slow motion, Alice's head hitting the wall, blood appearing at her mouth, the monitors going crazy. Juror number 3 vomited into a bag. Juror number 7 was crying. Juror number 12, a father of 3 daughters, looked at Josh with such hatred that the defense would later try unsuccessfully to have him removed. "But this case," Sarah continued, "isn't just about Josh Kushner's crimes. It's about a system that protected him because he was wealthy, connected, powerful. That protection ends today." She turned to face Josh directly. "Today, money doesn't matter. Connections don't matter. All that matters is truth. And the truth is that Josh Kushner is the most prolific serial killer in American history. The first witness was Dr. Martinez from the hospital. "Doctor, describe Alice Kushner's condition when she arrived." "She was dying. Catastrophic hemorrhaging from placental abruption. We lost her twice on the operating table. Her blood pressure was so low we couldn't initially find a pulse. And the baby, born clinically dead, we managed to resuscitate after 90 seconds. And when Mr. Kushner arrived? He was clearly intoxicated. I could smell alcohol and observed cocaine residue around his nostrils. He showed no concern for his wife or child's condition. Then what happened? He struck her. Hard enough that I was concerned about traumatic brain injury. She was barely conscious, connected to life support, and he hit her because she'd inconvenienced his schedule." Sarah played the video again. 7 angles, each one showing Josh's face, the rage, the disgust, the complete absence of humanity. No further questions. Brennan attempted cross-examination. "Doctor, isn't it possible Mr. Kushner was simply overwhelmed with emotion?" Dr. Martinez looked at him with undisguised contempt. "I've delivered babies for 20 years. I've seen fathers faint, cry, panic, pray. I've never seen one assault their dying wife. That wasn't emotion. That was sociopathy." The second witness was Marcus Chen, Josh's former CFO, who'd negotiated immunity in exchange for testimony. "Mr. Chen, tell us about the fraud." Marcus opened a laptop, displaying a complex web of transactions. Josh created 130 shell companies across 17 countries. He moved investor money through them, taking cuts at each level. Total stolen, $780 million. Where did the money go? Personal expenses, yachts registered under false names, properties for mistresses, and... Marcus paused. Payments to professional killers. How many killers? 17 that I know of. The primary one was called the Cleaner. $3 million per hit. How many hits? 47 confirmed, possibly more. Sarah introduced financial records, each transaction documented, each murder paid for, each life valued at $3 million. "Mr. Chen, did Josh ever express remorse?" "He said killing was like breathing, natural, necessary, and not worth thinking about." The gallery gasped. The third witness was Patricia Kushner, Josh's mother. As she walked to the stand, Josh exploded. "You lying bitch! You're dead! You hear me? I'll fucking kill you. I should have drowned you with Dad." Security restrained him, but he kept screaming. "I'll kill you all! Every fucking one of you! You're all dead!" The courtroom was stunned into silence. Patricia, trembling but determined, took the stand. "Mrs. Kushner," Sarah said gently, "what did your son just confess to?" "Murdering his father, my husband Richard. He held him underwater until he stopped breathing." She produced a tablet. Richard installed cameras in Josh's apartment. He suspected something was wrong. This is what he found. The video played. The courtroom watched in horror as Josh strangled a woman in his living room. Her face was clear, her terror real. Her death recorded in high definition. Several jurors had to be excused. One fainted. The court had to recess for 30 minutes. When they returned, Patricia continued. "There are 43 more videos, each one a murder. Richard was going to turn Josh in, so Josh killed him. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Josh had me committed, paid doctors to say I was insane, kept me drugged for 2 years. When I got out, he controlled everything. He said if I ever spoke, he'd kill me." The fourth witness was Alice. She walked slowly to the stand, still recovering, but her presence commanded the room. This wasn't just a victim, this was a warrior. "Miss Blackstone," Sarah began, using Alice's real name, "tell us about your marriage." Alice looked directly at Josh. He couldn't meet her eyes. It was a performance, every moment staged, every gesture calculated. I was a prop in his show, and when I stopped being useful, I was scheduled for disposal. When did you realize this? When I found his trophy room, photos of 47 women he'd killed, videos of murders, items taken from victims, and a photo of my mother, labeled "Test Run Successful." Your mother? Elizabeth Blackstone. Josh poisoned her slowly over 14 months, made it look like cancer. He documented everything. The poison used, her symptoms, her death. He killed her because she told me to leave him. The courtroom erupted. Even Judge Williams had to pause to compose herself. Why did you stay after discovering this? Because someone had to stop him. The FBI couldn't. He owned too many agents. The police couldn't. He owned too many cops. But a wife? A wife could get close enough to gather evidence. So you knew? I knew everything. I recorded everything. 3 years of evidence. She pulled out a drive. 10,000 hours of recordings. Josh confessing to murders, planning deaths, laughing about victims. Sarah played a sample. Josh's voice, "The pregnant one was my favorite. 2 for 1. Efficient. I might market it as a service to other rich men with problems." A juror ran from the room to vomit. "Ms. Blackstone, what do you want this jury to know?" Alice turned to face them. Josh Kushner chose evil. Every day he chose to kill, to hurt, to destroy. He's not insane. He's not sick. He's evil. Pure, conscious, deliberate evil. And he enjoyed every second of it. The defense had no questions. The 5th witness was someone unexpected. Michael, age 5. Josh's son from his first victim. The judge had agreed to allow video testimony to protect the child. "Michael," Sarah asked gently, "do you know who Josh Kushner is? The bad man who hurt my first mommy? What do you remember about your first mommy?" "She was scared. Always scared. She cried a lot. Then she went to heaven." "Do you know how she went to heaven?" "The bad man hurt her. My other mommy told me when I was older enough to understand." "Are you scared of the bad man? Grandpa Warren says the bad man can't hurt anyone anymore. Grandpa Warren protects us." Even Judge Williams had tears in her eyes. Sarah's closing argument was devastating in its simplicity. You've seen evil. You've heard evil. You've witnessed what happens when wealth and power protect a monster. Josh Kushner killed 113 people. He felt no remorse. He feels no remorse. He will never feel remorse. Your duty is simple. Make sure he never kills again. The jury deliberated for 17 minutes, just long enough to vote. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On count 1, murder in the first degree, guilty. On count 2, guilty. For the next 3 hours, they read guilty verdicts. 1,113 counts. All guilty. Josh collapsed, but not from remorse, from rage that he'd lost. Judge Williams stood for sentencing. Josh Kushner, you are the physical embodiment of evil. You killed without conscience. You destroyed without hesitation. You felt nothing but pleasure at others' pain. She paused. I sentence you to death by lethal injection for each count of murder. However, since New York doesn't execute, these become consecutive life sentences. 1,695 years. No possibility of parole. You will die in a cage, alone, forgotten, exactly as your victims did. As they dragged Josh out, he screamed, "I'm God! You can't judge God. I'll kill you all." Alice stood and said quietly but clearly, "You're not God. You're not even human. You're nothing." The last image of Josh Kushner was him being dragged away in chains, screaming incoherently as the world watched and felt nothing but satisfaction. Justice had been served. But Warren Blackstone wasn't done. The network Josh had revealed, 43 other wealthy killers, they were next. The trial of Josh Kushner was over. The war on his kind had just begun. Chapter 7. The Empire's Final Hours. The collapse of Josh Kushner's empire didn't happen in days or weeks. It happened in hours, broadcast live to 2 billion viewers who watched with the fascination typically reserved for natural disasters or declarations of war. CNBC had cleared its entire schedule, calling it the financial execution of the century. Bloomberg had 20 analysts on split screen. Even the NYSE had installed additional servers to handle the trading volume as Josh Kushner's world evaporated at the speed of light. Warren Blackstone stood in his war room like a conductor before a symphony of destruction, 90 screens showing different angles of the same story, complete annihilation. Phase 7, he commanded at exactly 9:30 a.m. when markets opened. 30 traders across 12 countries simultaneously dumped every share of Kushner Industries they'd been secretly accumulating for 3 years. The stock price fell so fast, the New York Stock Exchange's automatic circuit breakers triggered 3 times in the first minute. Phase 8. FBI agents raided 17 Kushner properties simultaneously. The footage mysteriously leaked to every major network within seconds. Agents carrying out boxes of evidence, computers, even Josh's art collection, including a Monet that turned out to be purchased with funds stolen from a children's cancer charity. But then something unexpected happened. Warren's head of security, Marcus, suddenly grabbed his arm. "Sir, we have a problem. Incoming threat. Now!" The window behind Warren exploded. A sniper's bullet passed through where Warren's head had been a second earlier, embedding itself in the far wall. Warren's security team immediately returned fire while dragging Warren to safety. "Northwest building, 14th floor," someone shouted. The assassination attempt had been ordered by Samuel Morrison, one of Josh's network members, a pharmaceutical CEO who'd killed 12 people who threatened his patents. "Did we get him?" Warren asked, remarkably calm for someone who'd nearly died. "Negative, he escaped. But sir, this means the network is fighting back. Good. When cornered rats attack, they reveal themselves." Warren stood, brushing glass from his suit. "Release Phase 9 immediately." Phase 9 was the nuclear option. Every single piece of evidence about the network released simultaneously to law enforcement worldwide. Within minutes, coordinated arrests began. 10:15 a.m., Senator Michael Harrison, arrested on the Senate floor during a filibuster about family values. The irony wasn't lost on anyone as they dragged him out in handcuffs, him screaming about diplomatic immunity that didn't exist. 10:47 a.m., Judge Robert Chen, taken from his own courtroom while presiding over a murder trial. The defendant actually applauded as they led the judge away. 11:23 a.m., CEO David Park, arrested during a board meeting, the entire thing captured on the company's internal cameras. The board immediately voted to dissolve the company rather than be associated with him. But 5 members of the network had vanished, fled to non-extradition countries with new identities and hidden millions. Warren made a single phone call. "President Morrison?" Those 5 runners we discussed. "Warren, we can't just... I'm not asking for military action. I'm asking for economic warfare." Within an hour, the president had signed executive orders. Sanctions against any country harboring the fugitives, frozen assets in any bank that did business with America, Interpol red notices with $1 million rewards. Meanwhile, at Rikers Island, Josh was watching his empire burn on a small television in his cell when 3 inmates approached. "Josh Kushner," the largest one asked. "Stay back, I'll have you killed." "With what money?" The man smiled. "See, my daughter was one of your victims, Rebecca Martinez." Josh's face went white. "That's not possible." "Prison's full of fathers, Josh. Fathers who lost daughters. The beating that followed was so severe Josh had to be hospitalized. But what happened next was worse. Someone had paid the medical staff to keep him conscious during treatment. No painkillers, so he could feel everything. Back in the war room, Warren received a call that changed everything. Mr. Blackstone, this is Director Hamilton from the CIA. We've uncovered something massive. Josh's network, it's international. We're tracking cells in London, Tokyo, Dubai, Moscow. This is bigger than serial killing. They're trafficking, selling weapons, funding terrorism. How many? Conservative estimate. 300 members globally, all wealthy, all connected, all killers. Warren looked at his team. Then we go global. He made another call. President Xi? Yes, it's Warren. I have information about Chinese citizens involved in Josh Kushner's network. Yes, full cooperation, thank you. Then another. Prime Minister Johnson. Warren Blackstone. We need to discuss British members of a certain network. Within 6 hours, Warren had coordinated with 7 world leaders. The network was being hunted on every continent. But the most shocking revelation came from an unexpected source. Patricia Kushner arrived at Warren's office with a box of USB drives. Mr. Blackstone, Josh didn't know, but Richard had cameras everywhere. Not just the apartment, Josh's office, his cars, even his yacht. 20 years of footage. Warren inserted the first drive. The screen showed Josh at Harvard speaking to a group of young men in robes, some kind of secret society. Gentlemen, young Josh said, we are the future rulers of this world. Laws don't apply to us. Morality is for the poor. We take what we want, kill who we want, because we can. The other men cheered. Warren recognized several faces, now senators, judges, CEOs. This is the founding of the network, Patricia confirmed. Richard knew something was wrong with Josh from childhood. He documented everything, hoping someday someone would stop him. Why didn't Richard act? He tried. The night before he died, he called the FBI. They said he was paranoid. The agent he spoke to, James Crawford, was part of the network. Warren pulled up Crawford's file. Currently serving as Deputy Director of the FBI. Marcus, arrest him, now. Sir, I don't care if he's the president. Arrest him. The arrest of Deputy Director Crawford was broadcast live. Dragged from FBI headquarters in handcuffs, screaming about conspiracies and frame jobs, he didn't realize his own office had been recording him for years on Warren's orders. By 6 p.m., the scoreboard was staggering. Minus 137 arrests across 12 countries, $47 billion in assets frozen. 23 major corporations dissolved, 6 governments fallen, 1 entire Swiss bank shut down for money laundering. Josh watched it all from his hospital bed, unable to move from his injuries but forced to stay conscious. Your network is gone, a nurse told him. She pulled off her mask. It was one of Warren's people. Every member arrested or dead. Your legacy is destroyed. There are more, Josh laughed through broken teeth. Hidden members, sleepers. They'll avenge me. You mean the 13 members in deep cover? We got them an hour ago. Josh's laughter turned to sobbing. But the true masterstroke came at 8 p.m. Warren appeared on every major network simultaneously. He'd bought an hour of global airtime for $1 billion. My name is Warren Blackstone. Today, we destroyed a network of killers who believed wealth made them untouchable. They were wrong. He held up a photograph of Josh. This man killed my wife. He tried to kill my daughter and granddaughter. He murdered 113 innocent people, but he wasn't alone. Photos appeared on screen, every network member. These men formed a society dedicated to murder as sport. They killed for pleasure, for convenience, for fun. They thought money protected them. Warren looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching who thinks wealth puts you above justice, learn from today. We found them all. We destroyed them all. And if you try to rebuild their network, we'll destroy you too. He held up a final photo. Baby Emma. This is my granddaughter. She was born into violence but will grow up in a world where her biological father and everyone like him has been erased. That's my promise to her and to every victim. Evil loses. The broadcast ended with a simple message: the Kushner Network, 0, Justice, 313. In his hospital bed, Josh made one last desperate call on a smuggled phone. "Thomas, son, it's your father." Thomas Kushner, 26, Josh's son from a victim before Harvard, answered from Chicago. "I've been waiting for your call. They think they've won. Activate Protocol 7. The Blackstone family? All of them, starting with the baby. Consider it done, father." Josh smiled for the first time since his arrest, but what Josh didn't know was that every call from prison was monitored. Within seconds, Warren's team had Thomas's location. Marcus himself led the raid. They found Thomas in an abandoned warehouse with a dismembered body, his latest victim, killed just hours before. But Thomas had a dead man's switch, a bomb connected to his heartbeat. "Kill me and this entire block explodes," Thomas laughed. 300 people die." Marcus smiled. "You're assuming we care about your heartbeat." A sniper's bullet took Thomas in the brainstem. Instant death, no time for his heart to stop gradually. The bomb never triggered. When Josh heard about his son's death, something finally broke inside him completely. He stopped eating, stopped speaking, stopped acknowledging reality. The psychiatrist would later note, "Complete psychotic break. Patient believes he's still free, still killing, still powerful. Permanent delusion." Meanwhile, Warren stood in his office, looking out at the city. "It's over," Marcus said. "No," Warren replied. "Now we rebuild. Every victim's family compensated, every orphan educated, every survivor supported. And Josh? Josh gets to live with his delusions, while the world forgets he existed." On the screens behind them, the news had already moved on to other stories. Josh Kushner wasn't even the lead anymore. He'd been erased exactly as Warren promised. And in her nursery, baby Emma slept peacefully, protected by the grandfather who'd burned down an empire to keep her safe. Chapter 8. The final recording. Josh Kushner's first suicide attempt came at 3:47 a.m., 3 weeks after his empire collapsed. Bedsheets twisted into a noose, footstool kicked away, face purple as he dangled. But the guards cut him down in exactly 43 seconds on Warren Blackstone's specific orders. "No," Warren had told the warden 12 hours earlier, anticipating this moment. "He doesn't get to escape. He lives, every moment, every day, for decades. Death is mercy, and Josh Kushner deserves none." Josh woke in the prison hospital, wrists and ankles restrained with leather straps, a breathing tube down his throat, unable to move or speak, but fully conscious. Warren had paid the medical staff to ensure that, and Warren himself was sitting beside the bed. "Hello, Josh," Warren said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of contained violence. "I wanted you to know something before your final trial, something that will destroy whatever sanity you're desperately clinging to." Warren pulled out a tablet, swiped to a video, and pressed play. Alice appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like Warren's office, speaking to someone off camera. The timestamp showed 3 years ago, before the hospital, before the pregnancy, before the world knew the truth. "I knew who Josh was before our first date," Alice said clearly. "Dad told me everything. The murders, all 47 at that time, the theft, the network. I knew it all." Josh's eyes widened above the breathing tube, his restrained hands clenching. The video continued. "I agreed to marry him," Alice explained, "because someone had to stop him. The FBI had tried 3 times and failed. The police had 7 open investigations that went nowhere. But a wife could get close enough to document everything from the inside." Josh made a strangled sound through the tube. Warren pulled out a thick folder, 500 pages of surveillance reports. "Every date you took her on, we were watching. Hidden cameras in the restaurant flowers, microphones in the jewelry you gave her, GPS trackers sewn into the designer clothes you bought. Every word you said, every crime you committed, every woman you killed while married to my daughter, we documented everything. Warren showed him photographs, hidden cameras throughout their apartment, some so small they were invisible to the naked eye, recording devices in Josh's cars, his office, even embedded in his shoes. The pregnancy wasn't planned, Warren admitted. Alice was supposed to leave after gathering 3 years of evidence, but when she became pregnant, she insisted on continuing. Even carrying your child, she never wavered. She knew we were building a case that would destroy not just you, but your entire network. Warren leaned closer. Every time you hit her, we recorded it. Every mistress you fucked, we filmed it. Every murder you planned, we documented it. You thought you were the predator, Josh. You were always the prey. Josh started laughing, a horrible sound through the breathing tube, more like choking. Warren pulled up another video. This is my favorite part. The screen showed Josh in his trophy room, talking to himself while arranging his victims' photos. Sweet Rebecca, you were number 1. Jennifer, you fought so hard it was almost boring. Sarah, pregnant Sarah, 2 for the price of 1. But in the corner of the video, barely visible, was Alice, watching, recording, her face a mask of controlled horror as she documented his confessions. She stood there for 40 minutes, Warren said, listening to you describe murdering 47 women. Then she went to the bathroom and vomited. Then she came back and kept recording. That's strength, Josh. That's what real power looks like. A doctor entered. Mr. Blackstone, we need to remove the breathing tube. As they pulled it out, Josh gasped. The hospital, when I hit her. The only time you went off script. We had security positioned to intervene, but you moved faster than anticipated. Alice knew you might snap. She'd prepared for it. She told me, when he finally hits me in public, that's when we end him. She risked her life. She risked her life to save the women you would have killed, the investors you would have robbed, the children you would have orphaned. 113 victims, Josh. She prevented hundreds more. Warren stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Josh? Your son Michael, the 5-year-old from victim 34, he's being raised by my family now. He calls me Grandpa. He's nothing like you, kind, gentle, loves animals. We're making sure he never knows what his biological father was. Josh screamed until his throat bled, but Warren was already gone. The next morning brought fresh horror. The FBI had found Josh's secondary storage unit, the one even Alice hadn't known about. Inside were things that made hardened investigators vomit. Preserved body parts from victims, children's clothing, though no children were ever linked to Josh. Videos of murders dating back to when Josh was 14. A detailed plan to kill the president and blame it on terrorists, chemical weapons stolen from military contractors. Detective Morrison held a press conference that afternoon, his face pale with disgust. We've confirmed 143 murders. Josh Kushner is the most prolific serial killer in American history. But worse, we've found evidence of planned mass casualty events. He intended to poison water supplies in major cities. He had enough ricin to kill millions. The storage unit also contained something unexpected, recordings Josh had made of other network members committing murders, insurance files. One video showed Senator Harrison strangling a prostitute, another showed Judge Chen beating a man to death with a gavel, a third showed CEO Park forcing a competitor to drink poison at gunpoint. 43 videos, 43 more arrests. But the most damning recording was Josh himself, speaking to a camera like he was making a documentary. My name is Josh Kushner, and I am God. I've killed 143 insects who called themselves human. By the time you see this, it will be over 200. Society will study me for centuries. I am evolution. The predator humanity needs to thin the herd. He went on for 3 hours, describing each murder in detail, critiquing his own technique, rating his victims' deaths like wine. Rebecca Martinez was a disappointing vintage, died too quickly. Jennifer Wu was exquisite, fought for 17 minutes. Elizabeth Blackstone was my masterpiece, 14 months of watching her die, knowing her family had no idea. Warren watched this video once, then had it sealed. Only the jury would see it. The next day, Josh had a visitor he didn't expect. Thomas, his son from Chicago, but Thomas was in handcuffs, flanked by FBI agents. "Hello, Father," Thomas said calmly. "Thomas, you're supposed to be dead? Arrested?" "No, Father. I made a deal. Full immunity in exchange for testimony. I'm going to bury you so deep they'll need archaeologists to find your memory." Josh lunged against his restraints. "You're my blood, my legacy." "I'm nothing like you," Thomas replied. "The body they found? That was staged. I've been working with the FBI for 2 years. Every murder you thought I committed was fake, every victim alive and in witness protection." "Impossible. I'm not a killer, Father. I'm an FBI asset. Have been since I turned 18 and learned what you were. I've been feeding them information about the network for years." Thomas pulled out a recorder. "This is our call from prison. You ordering me to kill the Blackstone family. Attempted murder conspiracy. That's another life sentence." Josh screamed incoherently as they dragged Thomas away. But the worst revelation was yet to come. Patricia Kushner returned with one final box of evidence. Recordings Richard had hidden in a safety deposit box, even she hadn't known about. Warren played the first one. It showed Josh at age 12, drowning a cat in the family pool while laughing. Age 14, pushing a classmate off a roof. Age 16, poisoning his teacher's coffee. She survived but was paralyzed. Age 17, his first human kill. A homeless man he'd beaten to death with a brick, thinking no one was watching. But Richard had been watching, recording, building a case. "Why didn't he stop him?" Warren asked Patricia. "He tried. The police said a rich man's son experimenting wasn't worth investigating. The FBI said without bodies there was no case. Richard was gathering evidence for federal prosecutors when Josh killed him. Richard knew he might die." Patricia pulled out a letter, sealed for 20 years. "He left this for whoever finally stopped Josh." Warren opened it. "To whoever reads this, you've succeeded where I failed. Josh is my greatest shame. I created a monster. I saw the signs early but convinced myself he'd grow out of it. By the time I accepted the truth, he'd killed dozens. I'm documenting everything, knowing he'll probably kill me for it. If you're reading this, he did. Please know I tried to stop him, and please tell his victims' families that a father's love couldn't blind me to his evil. I chose justice over my son. I hope that brings them some peace." Richard Kushner. Warren folded the letter carefully. He was a good man in an impossible situation. That night, Josh made what he thought was a secret call using a phone he'd bought from a guard. "Hello, Melissa?" Melissa Chen answered from her apartment in Dubai, where she'd fled. "Josh? How? I need you to do something. Transfer the cryptocurrency. All of it. 50 million. Use it to hire the best killers. I want every Blackstone dead." "Josh, Do it!" Okay. Sending now." Josh smiled for the first time in weeks. But the call was monitored. Melissa was arrested within the hour. She'd been under surveillance the entire time, her escape to Dubai carefully orchestrated to see who she'd contact. The cryptocurrency wallet? It belonged to the FBI. They now had Josh on tape ordering $50 million worth of assassinations. Warren visited Josh one final time. "Your last hope just evaporated, Josh." Melissa flipped. "Thomas was always ours. Your mother testified. Your network is destroyed. Your money is gone. Your legacy is erased." Josh stared at him with dead eyes. "I'll get out, someday, and when I do, you'll be 97 years old if you live that long, which you won't. The other inmates know what you did to children. I never touched children. No, but they don't know that. And rumors in prison are so hard to stop. Josh went pale. You wouldn't? I wouldn't have to. Amazing how information spreads. Child killers don't last long in general population. That's murder. Warren leaned close. No, Josh, that's justice. The kind you never gave your victims. As Warren left, Josh called after him. What about Emma? She's my blood. She'll grow up to be like me. Warren stopped at the door. Emma will grow up surrounded by love, educated in the best schools, supported by family who chose her. She'll know her biological father was evil, and she'll spend her life proving that genetics don't determine destiny. She'll seek me out. She'll visit your grave, once, to spit on it. The door closed on Josh's screams. 3 days later, Josh Kushner was found catatonic in his cell. The psychiatrist's report, complete dissociative break from reality. Patient believes he's still free, still wealthy, still killing. He conducts business meetings with imaginary people. He orders murders that don't happen. He lives entirely in a delusion where he won. Warren read the report and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, nothing. Josh Kushner had been erased exactly as promised. And in her nursery, Emma took her first steps, laughing as David and Alice cheered, while Warren watched from the doorway. 3 generations of choosing love over darkness. The war was over. Love had won. Chapter 9. The Verdict. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Martha Williams prepared to deliver the verdict that would end Josh Kushner's reign of terror forever. Will the defendant please rise? Josh stood on trembling legs, 90 pounds lighter, hair completely white, hands shaking from antipsychotics. The golden boy from magazine covers had become a skeletal ghost. Mr. Kushner, you have been found guilty on all 1,317 counts. Judge Williams removed her glasses, something she'd never done in 40 years. I have presided over terrorists, crime bosses, war criminals, but never have I encountered evil as pure as yours. You killed 143 people, not from passion or revenge, but from boredom. You documented their deaths like a child collecting stamps. She looked at the gallery packed with victims' families. Rebecca Martinez, 22, strangled while you ate a sandwich. Jennifer Wu, thrown from a building after 43 minutes of begging. Sarah Johnson, paralyzed and forced to watch herself die for 6 hours while 7 months pregnant. Elizabeth Blackston, poisoned over 14 months while you took notes like a scientist. Several jurors were crying. Mr. Kushner, I sentence you to death by lethal injection for each murder. 143 death sentences. Since New York doesn't execute, these become life sentences, plus 900 years for fraud, 300 for attempted murder, 500 for conspiracy. Total, 3,117 years in solitary confinement. No visitors, no privileges, no hope. That's unconstitutional, Josh's lawyer protested. What's unconstitutional is that money protected him for 20 years. This ends now. Judge Williams turned to Josh. Any last words? Josh smiled his magazine cover smile, now a skull's grin. You think you've won? I've killed more than you'll ever find. Your daughters begged, your mothers cried, and I felt nothing because I am a god. Stop. The judge's voice cut like a blade. You're not a god. You're a rich boy who confused privilege with permission. You'll die in a concrete box, alone and forgotten, while your victims are remembered forever. I'll be remembered as nothing. Remove him. As guards dragged Josh away, he screamed, My followers will avenge me. The network lives. This wasn't an empty threat. Within minutes, coordinated attacks began. Bomb threats, white powder mailings, broken windows at Warren's properties. The FBI tracked them to 13 escaped network members. Warren appeared on global television within hours, buying airtime on every network. To the 13 cowards threatening my family, you have 24 hours to surrender. He held up their photos with their locations. Milan, Tokyo, São Paulo, Moscow. I know where you are. He dialed a number on speaker. Mr. Petrov in Moscow, look out your window. Split screen showed a terrified face appearing at a window, then vanishing after seeing snipers on adjacent rooftops. 24 hours. Surrender or disappear. All 13 surrendered in 23 hours and 47 minutes. The subsequent trials, Nuremberg 2.0, convicted 157 network members, combined sentences 12,000 years. But Josh made one final move. Letters arrived at Emma's daycare. Dear Emma, I am your real father. You have my genetics, my power. Find me when you're 18. Your real daddy, Josh. Warren's response was absolute. He bought the entire prison, converting it to Blackstone Psychiatric Institute with Josh as its only patient. Complete isolation, no communication, total erasure. The psychiatrist reports charted Josh's destruction. Month 1. Claims to run his company from cell. Month 3. Conducts imaginary murders daily. Month 6. No longer recognizes own name. Month 12. Complete break from reality. Meanwhile, Emma grew up surrounded by love. At 5, she asked David, "Why do I have 2 last names?" "Because you're twice as loved, sweetheart." "What about before you?" Alice answered carefully. "Someone very sick who had to go away." "Is he dead?" "To us, yes." Warren prepared a video for Emma's 18th birthday, explaining everything, ending with, "You are proof we are not our genetics. We are our choices." Emma would become a victims' rights attorney, pass 7 major laws, marry a kind man, have 3 children who'd never know Josh's name. At 30, she'd visit Josh's unmarked grave once, leave a white rose for the victims, not you, and never return. Because monsters don't deserve remembrance. They deserve to be replaced by the light they tried to extinguish. Warren hadn't just erased Josh Kushner, he'd made him irrelevant. Chapter 10. 5 years later, the final truth. The wedding was perfect. Emma Blackstone Hamilton, 23, radiant in white, dancing with David, the only father she'd ever known. Warren, 83 but still commanding, watched from his table. "She looks just like Elizabeth," he told Alice. "Mom would have loved this," Alice replied. A hand touched Warren's shoulder. Michael, 35, Josh's son from his first victim, now Manhattan's youngest district attorney. "Beautiful wedding, grandfather." Warren smiled. Michael had started calling him that after law school. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it. Emma's family. 3 sons of a monster, Michael the prosecutor, Thomas the teacher in witness protection, Marcus the German surgeon who saved children, all choosing to heal rather than harm." A reporter approached. "Mr. Blackstone, it's been 5 years since Josh Kushner died. Any comment?" "Talk to them," Warren gestured to Michael. "Their story matters. Josh's doesn't." Emma found Warren on the terrace at sunset. "Grandpa, I'm pregnant." Warren's eyes filled with tears, rare for him. "Emma, Warren if it's a boy, Elizabeth if it's a girl." "And if Josh's genetics—" "Don't. I've spent my life proving genetics don't determine destiny. My child will be raised in love like I was. There's something else. I got a letter from Switzerland. Josh had a hidden account, 150 million. As his biological daughter, I inherit it. What will you do? Every penny goes to the victims' families." That night, Warren gave the final toast. 5 years ago, a monster tried to destroy my family. He failed. Not because we were stronger, but because we chose love over fear. My granddaughter is proof that we are not our origins. We are our choices. He looked at the victims' families present. Josh Kushner wanted to be remembered as a god. Instead, he's forgotten while his victims are honored. Their names are on hospitals, schools, laws. That's true immortality, living on in the good you've done. Later, Walking through the gardens with Alice, she revealed, "The night before the hospital, I found Josh's video of poisoning Mom, but at the end, Mom looked directly at the camera and said, 'Warren will destroy you, and my daughter will dance on your grave.' She knew we'd win. She knew love would win." A year later, Warren passed peacefully at 84. Thousands attended his funeral. Emma spoke. "My grandfather taught me that power isn't what you can destroy, but who you protect. Every good thing I do exists because he chose to fight for me." The Blackstone Foundation, run by Emma and Michael, became the world's largest victims advocacy organization. 25 years after Josh's death, workers renovating his old office found a hidden letter to Emma. "My dear daughter, you carry my genes. Every day you'll face choices, to lie, to hurt, to take. Each time you choose kindness, you defeat me. Each time you choose love, you erase me. I wanted a dynasty of predators. Instead, you became human, something I never was. Your real father is whoever loved you enough to raise you. Let me fade into nothing." Josh. Emma, now 48, mother of 3, read it once and burned it. "Some words don't deserve to exist." Her assistant entered. "There's a young woman here. Her father was in the Kushner network. She just found out." Emma embraced the terrified girl. "You're not alone. We are not our father's sins. Let me tell you about choosing light over darkness." Outside, New York hummed with life. In a cemetery across town, Josh Kushner's grave sat unmarked, unvisited, grass already reclaiming it. But in the Blackstone Foundation building, light blazed from every window, thousands of lives saved, families healed, futures reclaimed. On Emma's desk, Warren's favorite quote, "Evil is loud but temporary. Good is quiet but eternal. Love survives." Below it, Emma's addition, "We are not our origins. We are our choices. Choose light." Josh had wanted to be God. Instead, he became nothing, and nothing is what he deserved. The end.